Hey everyone, welcome back to Career Journeys, brought to you by Career Companion. We're here with Elee Gulessaerian today, and he's going to give you a bit of an overview of what he does for his work, what his job title is, and how he got to where he is right now. So, first of all, what is your job title?
Thanks for having me, Sam. So my job title is a senior clinical research associate.
Wow, okay, fantastic. And how, what do you do in your day-to-day work for people who don't know what that job is?
Right. It's a question that I come across pretty regularly, but it's also something a little bit difficult to answer at times.
Yeah.
Basically, I'm in charge into the day-to-day site management of hospitals or clinics that are taking part of a clinical trial program. So by a clinical trial program, I mean that we may be running a clinical trial at a particular site or a hospital where patients come and undergo the relevant tests and the administration of the drugs. I am in charge of ensuring that all the procedures are being done correctly, if not, are being recorded correctly, patient safety, regulatory aspects in terms of training, documentation, or manage adequately on site, and verifying all the data that's being collated during the clinical trial. And this can range from trials spanning 6 months for up to 15 years to ensure the data is accurate, that's being reported, so that we can ensure that if the drug actually works, it can be deemed successful and be available to the public one day.
Ah, fantastic. So for, I guess for people out there, I mean, so they have a bit more of an idea, clinical trials for mainly pharmaceutical drugs to help with any certain diseases.
Yeah, so I work in pharmaceutical clinical trials, but there
Hmm.
can be clinical trials in terms of medical devices, pharmaceuticals, clinical trials in terms of animal drugs as well. So the company I work for has a big hand in animal health as well. So
Awesome.
there's that aspect into it, farming as well. So, but I work in human health, pharmaceutical clinical trials.
Perfect. And so now you're a bit more of a hands-on operation, operational manager by the sounds of it. Were you more in the weeds, as they say, before you got to this role?
I am a bit more, still a bit hands-on, not
Yeah.
necessarily as an operational manager. So yes, there are different levels in
Yep.
terms of the career pathway. So I began as an in-house clinical research associate, which is commonly known as in other companies as a CTC, or clinical trials coordinator.
Yep.
That position generally entails more of the clerical administrative day-to-day work. Each company might have different responsibilities in terms of that role. So, for example, my experience 5, 6 years ago is slightly different to what is being currently conducted in my company now as a CTC. So, not only do they assist with, like I mentioned, administrative work, so printing, filing, things like that, you can have a hand in financial side of things, so processing invoices and payments, um, uh, dealing with submissions, so regulatory submissions, assisting the clinical operations manager. You can then step up to the CRA role, which you can start off as an associate CRA, then move to a CRA, so basically CRA 1, 2, and then a senior CRA. Depending on your bands, so where you position, will determine the responsibility that you have, the expectation of your experience and what you're supposed to provide. So as a senior CRA, you'd be expected to work on more complex clinical trials that have much more in depth and a lot of moving parts and a lot of it's the medical it's a medical difficulty essentially. It's a much
Yep.
more complex trial to run with many moving parts. But also you're required to conduct particular phases of clinical trials. So validations, for example, you may start doing it as a CRA 2 or as a CRA. but you're expected to conduct them more as a senior CRA. And what I mean by validations is that it's the beginning processes of a clinical trial. It's essentially going to these sites to interview them to ensure they are adequately resourced, they have the capacity to take on the burden, the administrative and the clerical burden of running a clinical trial. Because, like I said, some of these can go for
Mm.
5, 10, 15 years. But also they have the patient population to be able to service or supply the clinical trial because uh, running clinical trials is a very costly operation.
Yeah.
And if we don't have the patients to service it, essentially, it doesn't provide the statistical data needed to see if it's a successful trial or not.
Mm.
So that's kind of, yeah, the different levels. There's also moving on above that, you can then go into clinical research manager or a clinical operations manager. So more project management or operations management in terms of regulatory side of things. So you're all, FDA submissions, your TGA, your HREC ethics, yada, yada, yada.
Like super interesting. Seems like there's quite a few different avenues.
Yeah, a lot.
I guess for yourself, there must have been a point in time, like you said, where you could go either one way or the other. How did you sort of make that decision, and what made you, I guess, go, I'm going to go for that?
Well, the good thing about where I started was in-house CRA. So it was a unique opportunity at the time because, pardon me, a lot of companies don't necessarily run it in this aspect, but it was a unique opportunity because it gave me a hand or insight into different positions. So as a clinical research associate, as an in-house clinical research associate, which is equivalent to a CTC, as I mentioned. I had a hand in a bit of regulatory items. I had a hand in a little bit of the finance side of things. I had a hand in the bit of the on-site monitoring, independent monitoring side of things, which is CRA work. So it gave me a bit of an idea of where my passion lies or what I'd be interested in pursuing as a career. Now, you can't go from an in-house CRA or a CTC to a clinical research manager straight away,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
Or you can't go straight to a clinical operations manager straight away. So the general avenue would be you either become a CRA to then move your way up to a CRM role, or you can even do CRA, move to a COM, or lateral move to a COM. You can work as a finance or protocol CTC for a long period of time, become an associate clinical operations manager. So having that exposure made me decide and made me realize as well that I'm more of an on hands type of individual.
yep,
Hands on, yeah. So I like to kind of be amongst it all, stemming from my time as working in a lab
yep.
as a geneticist. Yeah, it made me realize that the regulatory side of things, although can be interesting, wasn't really my forte.
Yeah.
Reviewing documents, amending documents, submitting, answering queries that ethics may provide for you wasn't necessarily my thing. Finance couldn't pay me to go into there. Just never really got to my head. But yeah, that was kind of how drove me or pushed me to take the avenue, the way I'm going on now, which is heading into that CRM position.
Ah,
Next.
fantastic.
Yeah.
And then I guess this is a good one. So I would love to know how you first got your step into the industry. So obviously there would have been, I'm assuming, a lot of study to get into this sort of field. So maybe let's rewind it all the way back to high school. Did you know back then that this is something that you wanted to pursue, or what were your sort
No,
of thoughts?
not at all. It's true. They say life's a journey, right?
Yeah.
You never really know where it's going to lead you. So I left school. I graduated from high
Yeah.
school, adamant to be working in human genetics, and I
Yes.
didn't do that. I went to uni. I got my Bachelor of Science, majoring in human biology, genetics. I was
Yep.
fortunate that I got essentially an internship whilst I was studying at university as a trainee hospital scientist. So it was a paid position as a trainee. I worked there full time, concurrent with my undergraduate studies, and it basically I
Right.
completed
So
that batch.
before we continue in that, sorry to interrupt, let's just unpack that a tiny bit for
Okay,
people at home
sure.
because that's quite impressive. So, number one, how did you go about getting that internship? Like, did you just see something online? Did you network? How did you get that?
It was an announcement in my second year. Yeah, my second year genetics class. I think it was, yeah, it was second year, it was human genetics, something of the sort. My lecturer just made an offhanded announcement. There was no presentation or anything of the sort. It was a hey, there's an opportunity to work in the cytogenetics lab at Westmead Children's Hospital. It's a great paid opportunity. I encourage those who are interested in pursuing this career to look into it, essentially along the lines. And I thought to myself, that sounds great. You know, it's working at a hospital. It's more or less also, it's getting paid while being a uni student because we've all
Yeah.
been a broke uni student before. But it's also I wanted to take the opportunity to kind of get my foot in the door. And one of the biggest things that I can always suggest to anyone is take a shot. Like, the worst thing that can happen is you don't get it or it's a no, but at least you tried. And in this instant, I surprisingly got the position. They take three on at a time. There was one position open, and if I wasn't mistaken, there was 20 more. There were 60 applicants, if I'm not
Wow.
mistaken. This is going back maybe a decade ago now that I was told, but there was
Yeah.
quite a few applicants at the time, and yeah, to my surprise, I got the position.
Did you do anything in particular to sort of position yourself out from the rest when your application?
I I can't 100% recall on what my exact application was, but what I could say with confidence is that step into it if you're going to, if this can be applied to anything. It's a step into it with honesty and integrity and confidence, really. You're not going to know everything, especially in
Mm,
this position. It was an internship, right? They know you don't know everything.
yeah.
You're a uni student. You're going through the work. You're understanding and learning everything. They want to provide that opportunity to you. So it's just being to your authentic self with your integrity and having confidence in yourself. To I'm gonna go in there and give it my best shot. I'm going to go in there with a positive attitude. I'm not going to lie about my credentials or anything. But yeah, and that's all you can hope for, really.
Yeah, perfect. And just before I ask my next question, I actually thought of something just then. Because obviously you said you wanted to get into this particular uni course. When you were in high school, did you know the exact sort of, minimum requirements that you needed to get into that university course?
Yes. So yeah, I had been looking into it. Well, I always knew I wanted to get into science. So up
Mm.
until year 10, it was marine biology until I discovered the wonderful world of genetics. And then I was adamant in going into the field of genetics. Now, one thing that a lot of people might not know is that I left high school with very, very, very average, below average UAI scores or completion scores.
Yes.
Now, that's to my own fault. I probably should have taken it a bit more seriously, like our parents always tell us. But I still took it the opportunity. Macquarie fortunately have a non-awards program whereby you do have to meet minimum criteria, and I think at the time, and they should still have it, was a 50 UAI, which is pass. There's only a subset of subjects that you can take. So you're allowed to select certain subjects. You have to pay for it up front, the cost, but it's essentially giving you an opportunity to prove yourself that
Okay.
you belong at at the university and you're able to undertake the expectations or the load of a university that they um, that comes with the territory. Obviously, to get accepted into that, I was fortunate enough to do well in that I ended up going straight into second year of my Bachelor of Science degree.
So basically, it was a year's worth of a bridging course, right? Like
Essentially,
yeah,
it was a full-fledged. You were at university, you were taking the class, so it was nothing of a
yeah,
different sort. There was an expectation, obviously, for you to meet a certain grade
yeah,
to be able to be deemed essentially successful. At the end of the year, you can then apply for whichever degree you would like to be admitted to, right? So it's kind of like a reapplication when you're first applying for uni, but this time you're within the university doing it.
yeah.
And then obviously, if you get accepted into a particular degree or course, then fantastic.
Perfect. And do you think for those people who have gone, oh, look, my ATAR or my score is, a bit lower. I would love to sort of do what Ellie's done, do
Mm.
that, a bridging course and then get into uni, but they're afraid that, they already got sort of lower marks. Will they be able to achieve the higher grades necessary? How hard was it for you to sort of, I guess, make that transition to, hey, I actually need to dig my heels in here?
It's a mental mindset, really. It's all about, and this can be applied, I believe, in any professional aspect or life aspect. It's taking the opportunity and seizing it, really. And you'd
Mm,
just be surprised what you could accomplish. As tacky as it sounds or cliche,
yeah.
you'd be surprised what you can accomplish with if you set your mind to be honest with yourself and dedicate yourself to it. And I'll give you an example is that I left my bachelor's degree and soon after I decided I wanted to undertake a master's. Again, took my shot into a master's of biotech and business degree. Was admitted into it as my first choice. Fantastic. But my first year classes as masters were very advanced, in-depth organic chemistry, yeah, biological chemistry, etc. Organic
Yeah.
chemistry classes. Chemistry is one of my worst sciences.
Right.
Right. It's a topic that it takes me longer to grasp, to understand, to really get a hold of the concept of it. It's not like biology sciences, human health, things like that, that I have more of a natural tune to. But the point of this is that I knew it was an opportunity being admitted into my masters. This was a hurdle, and I wanted to do well in my masters.
Hmm.
That my chemistry classes ended up being one of the highest scoring subjects in my entire master's degree.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because I spent that extra time. I really put in an effort from my undergrad, my chemistry classes were, you know, passes. I was getting high credits, distinctions, and I think for one of them I was even getting high distinction for. So I really leveled up in that aspect,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
really applied myself to it as well. It's just taking that opportunity.
Yeah, very, very impressive. And then I guess let's also go back a bit. So,
Yeah.
second year of uni, you got into the course that you wanted. So you did that bachelor's for what,
Science.
three? Yeah, yeah, for 3 years, 2 years?
So I had to, because I was working full time,
Yes.
I had to do my half of my undergraduate part time. So it did
Yes.
take me a little bit longer. There was a point in time that I was doing full time work, full time study, but I and full time gym, and I do not recommend that for
Yeah, I
anyone.
was about to that was going to be one of my questions. How did you find balancing, I guess, having that internship? Like, obviously, it's going to go well with your degree, but how did you find balancing all that time? Like, how many hours a week were you doing work plus university?
It was very difficult, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. At the time, I did have personal goals as well, physical in terms of healthy aspect of I wanted to go to the gym and, like everyone at that age, I wanted to put on some muscle, lose some weight, look, physically healthy
Yeah,
and
yeah.
pleasing. But it would entail in me um, waking up at 4:30 in the morning with my pre-workout and my banana on my bedside table,
Yeah.
So I instantly wake up and eat it, head to the gym at 5, 5 to 6 train, get changed, and then from 6 shower change, and then from 6:20, 6:30, drive to Westmead to start work at 7:30. I'd finish at 4, drive an hour home, have maybe about half an hour, 45 minutes downtime to myself, maybe a quick bite to eat after that. Then I'd get into study from about 6 to 9. Um, yeah, at least catching up on lectures, working on assignments, whatever it may be. And then by about 9:15 to 10 o'clock, I'd have my downtime, my me time again. Oh,
Mm.
sorry, from about 9 to 9:15, I'd prep, sorry, my lunch and things like that for work the next day. And then have that 45 minutes at the end of the day to about 10 o'clock, downtime watching whatever I want on TV. And I had to be very strict on myself to turn the TV off at 10 so I can go to sleep and pretty much start it again. It was, it was, I would never do it again in my life. Obviously, I had a lot more energy when I was younger.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it wasn't easy, which is why obviously I had to kind of take a beat back. Unfortunately, I had to give up some other aspects like soccer, football. I loved playing it, but I wasn't able to meet the commitments of training, and I felt bad that all I did was on the Saturday rock up to the game when I didn't have,
Yeah.
go to training during the week. So things like that had to take a little bit of a step back to prioritize, obviously, my future.
Mm. Now, for people listening to that and going, wow, that sounds full on, with that
You have to do
intern,
that.
with
That
that
was
intern,
crazy.
but with that internship, did it, because it was in the sort of field that you wanted to do and it was aligned to your uni degree, did it feel as taxing as, like, say, if you were working a job like at Civic Video for 8 hours of the day, or did it sort of give you that sort of motivation and the spur to be like, yes, this is super interesting. This is really helping with my degree.
Yeah, so here's a little catch 22. So yes, it definitely helped because there was a passion in it from my end. Like any job, and especially as an internship, you're gonna start at the bottom. You're gonna be doing all the cleanup in the lab and all the busy work, right?
Yeah.
But yes, you do have an opportunity. You do have the opportunity to learn. You do get your hands dirty and do the wet lab work in handling biological specimens and learning how to analyze genetic material, whether it be chromosomes or PCR testing, things like that. The crux of it. So it does definitely help having a passion with it. But it made me realize it gives you a little bit of clarity, and a bit of controversial mates be like. But yes, you need to have the underlying knowledge and understanding and capability working in a lab, biological knowledge to be able to do these things. But I'm a firm believer that from my experience, that a lot of it is gained by on-site experience and actually going through the process. I can tell you how cells function, right? And the reasoning of certain, biological aspects that lead to a certain thing, but until you actually see it in firsthand, and then having to think critically outside of a textbook of black and white to determine what's going on, these are things that you learn when you're there. And by that, that extends your knowledge a bit as well within that field because you're getting exposure outside of your typical textbook or your lecturer just providing slides. So I think it's a bit of a double.
Yeah, a bit of a, yeah. No, but that sounds like it was definitely worth it. Listening to you say now, it seems that hands-on experience, it definitely helped. And did you do that for the whole of your bachelor's degree?
I did it for that and my master's degree.
Okay. And
Oh,
yeah, so onto that master's. So for people at home like myself who don't necessarily know the traditional, I guess, steps forward in your space, because obviously you were doing, like you said, biology,
mm.
science, was your master's that you chose a clear cut decision of, hey, this is the path that everyone does, I'm going to do this? Or is this at the point, because you said you changed, right?
Mm.
From wanting to do a particular area. Was
Yeah.
this the point that you decided, or was it after you did your masters that you decided to change
So it
your
was about
trajectory?
it was as I decided to do my masters. Now,
Right.
as much as I loved working in a lab and doing the wet work, um, it came. I had to look at my career, my life from a outsider's perspective, from a wider lens, essentially, of
Mm.
what do I want to be doing in 10, 15, 20 years time? How did my life outside of my professional career, how does that look like to me? And what do I want and how can I get there? And unfortunately, in saying this, working in the public health sector, it's you have to be really passionate and love to do it.
Yeah.
And not to say that I didn't, but where my trajectory lied moving forward in life was different. In saying that the opportunities in the public sector are not as abundant as it is in private. The remuneration as well isn't as flashy or as abundant as the growth professionally
Mm.
can be limiting. And I had a passion to continue, pardon me, growing and developing and moving into those additional roles, not having to stay in the same position for 10, 12 years before I get into a management position.
Okay, so what you're saying is if you were to go down the route that you originally wanted, it sounds like it would be
It would be a
a
long
longer time
slog.
for promotions, not as good on the remuneration side.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and your other option is that your best, well, another option that you can partake if you wanted to continue doing so was going and doing your masters. Sorry, your PhD, right?
Yes.
So there's two aspects in that. If or when you do your PhD, you can either do that and obviously go into research side of things. So you work at a university, conducting your own research on the side, or you work at the hospital still in a clinical setting, but obviously you have more of a higher duties when
Yes.
you're hopefully given that position of a senior scientist, right? You can have your PhD and still be a scientist, a hospital scientist. So it goes hospital scientist, senior scientist, principal scientist, essentially. And it can be some time before you get that step up, even when you have your PhD to a senior scientist position.
Okay. Yeah, fantastic. That makes complete sense. Thank you for breaking that down. And so you've done your masters, you've completed it. So how many years all up were you at university?
Uh, it was about 7 years in total.
Yeah, but you did do an internship at the same time, so
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
quite impressive to still get that done in 7 years.
Yeah. 7 years, something
Yeah.
about that. Yeah.
And did you find that having done that internship, do you think that opened more doors when you were applying for other jobs?
Yes, without a doubt.
Yep.
Without a doubt, it did. It shows experience in a professional setting, essentially,
Hmm.
that you're able to work in an environment. It doesn't matter if it was public or private, you're able to still work in a professional setting, especially in science. Yes, you need to have the degrees to prove you have the knowledge, but it helps put you a step above because you have applied it as well,
Yeah.
which is the important thing. So it definitely does differentiate in a sense that it might make them look at your resume, like stand out your resume,
Yeah.
right? To say, oh, look at he's been working as a hospital scientist for 6 years, working in cytogenetics to perform X, Y, and Z, yada yada yada. He's got the stint, he's got the experience. It jumps out more. So yeah, I definitely think it helped.
Perfect. And was it tough finding your first job out of I guess your degree? How'd you find it?
My masters, yeah,
Yeah.
it did definitely. I when I finished my master's, I was a little unsure in terms of what avenue to go through, which made it a little bit more difficult to hone in on a job. But at the
Hmm.
same time, as well, it is a bit of a harder industry to break into. So, a lot of the jobs that you might come across are sales jobs, pharmaceutical sales reps, medical device sales reps,
Yep.
or essentially working in a lab, Douglas Hanly Moyer, etc., kind of, processing samples, things like that. But I didn't want to just stuck in lab processing samples. The reason why I did the joint degree of biotechnology and business is that I wanted to break into more of the business side of the science field, but I
Yep.
didn't want to go into sales. Sales is not my thing. Sales is something I don't believe in it. Um, as in believe in it for myself, not in general. It's just that it's just not something for me that I can do. But I still wanted to stay in the science realm. So it was a bit of a hard slog in terms of constantly around the clock applying for jobs, going to interviews. It took me about a year to get my foot in the door into clinical research. And in the meantime, I was working at a disability company, an NDIS provider disability company as an account manager, essentially, which I took it as an opportunity that a headhunter provided for me, although has nothing to do with my field. I took it as an opportunity to get paid because I needed to get paid, but
Yeah.
also give me experience and help me have that essentially manager title under my belt to help me push me along and, you know, getting a feel in another industry as well, and
Mhm.
the broader range of experience.
Yeah, because you said you sort of struggled in that direction that you wanted to go forward with after you completed your masters. Did you sort of have discussions with, I'm just trying to think, personally what I would do. I'd probably talk to my fellow classmates or my
Mm.
partner or a couple of my friends to sort of, I guess, vent it out loud and sort of brainstorm.
Mm.
How did you go about that?
Well, I did have an opportunity during my masters there was a fork in a road to either go into research,
Hmm.
or I can double up and go into research, or continue on and complete the degree as it is. Um, so, and so that was during the fork and afterwards as well. Um, when it comes to science, I find that sometimes it's hard to be able to talk to people who aren't in the industry because it's very particular. It's not that it's a bad thing, but it's if you're not in it, it's hard to explain and kind of understand, I think. So
Yeah.
I did talk to my sister who is in the industry, and she heavily advised personally for me not to go into research, because she did. So she gave me her experience. I did talk to my partner at the time, to try to figure out what to do, and yeah, but the thing is, a lot of my classmates went in to do their PhDs and went that route. So it was in a very unique position, I think, for myself, where I kind of had to try to figure it out for myself, because no one really has the answers.
Yeah. But did you find it helpful to sort of talk to those other classmates that went down that different route to sort of get an understanding of where they were at, they were going? Did that give you I guess, a bit
Yeah,
more of a, hey, actually, what I am doing is, I think, what's right for me because of what
yeah.
they've just said.
I think it reaffirmed my decision not to go into research and continue do my PhD. Like I wouldn't lie, there is always a little part of my subconscious that is always intrigued and tickles the idea of maybe I should go back to uni and do my PhD.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But then I remind myself that it's another 4 years of university and it's not something I'm willing or keen on doing at this point in time. Maybe in the future, who knows, my mind will change. But yeah, it just provided me with that little bit of insight as well on what they went through. And I have two sisters that did undertake research masters, one of which started her PhD as well. So I have an idea from that end as well, an exposure from that side on what it entails and what they need to do and Yeah, so it kind of reaffirmed that that's not the way I want to go.
Perfect. And I guess just a couple more questions before
Mhm.
we wrap it up. So obviously you've progressed in your career. Was
Mm.
there, I mean, like you said earlier, you were doing your internship, which you really think helped you get your foot in the door for your applications into, your
Mm.
first sort of jobs outside of that degree.
Yeah.
Was there anything else that you did to work your way up into your current position, or do you feel like it was just pure hard work, dedication, and then it was sort of the right time to move up? Or
Yeah, so I think it's multifactorial. How I got into clinical research, I fell into it to a degree. So sometimes it has
Mm.
some luck. I was looking online for some jobs to kind of determine exactly what I want to do and what I'd be interested in. So, going through forums and, seek.com, just trying to, got headhunters, yada, yada, yada. And I ended up applying for a CRA position when I first was trying to get into the industry.
yeah.
Obviously, I was not going to get that because it requires at least 4 to 5 years on-site monitoring experience, et cetera, et cetera. But I just threw my hat and I was like, you know what? This sounds very interesting. I'd be very interested in doing so. I'm just going to apply for it. I'm not going to get it. But turns out I got a call from HR um, confirming my suspicions. Yeah, you're not
Yeah.
qualified for this job,
Yes, sir.
but we do have an entry position that'd be very suited for, which is the in-house CRA position. So I
Oh,
said,
okay.
great, let's set up the interview. Let's do it. Send me the JD. I'll have a look at it. But no problem at this point from what you've said. Sounds great. Let's set up an interview and I'll have a look at the JD in the meantime.
Perfect. And that I take it that was all part of your master plan, right? Apply for a
Yes,
high
that was
role,
all
get a
part of
low
my
role.
master plan.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Genius.
yeah. Take as many shots as you can until one of them sticks.
I mean, it worked. It was a good
It,
strategy,
it, it does, and I'm a firm believer, and I mentioned this earlier, is that you have to take the opportunities and have a crack at it and be honest with yourself and integrity and confident in yourself. Because not only that, I was then within a 9 months went into a CRA bridging program where they train you to be a CRA and promoted
Yeah.
in less than a year. Within that, I was promoted again to CRA 2 in about 12 months' time. And it's all about I was taking opportunities. I was networking and talking to the people that you need to talk to, and that can be anyone from your manager to a project manager to anyone, someone in a different department, and just having those conversations with them to understand, to build your knowledge base and your network,
Yeah.
really. So there wasn't necessarily anything in particular, like a course that I did or anything. It's being proactive, it's being organized, it's taking the risks and opportunities. And if you make a mistake, then owning those mistakes and being honest and having the integrity to it, because in a professional setting, that's very important and that's what they value. And it was knowing also when to make some changes. And you're never going to know 100% if it's the right thing or not. But there's one in particular, sorry, job change that I did in my pharmaceutical clinical trials career that really set me on this trajectory is when I left um, my original company that I worked with, right, to join another company that embedded me as a contractor into a major pharmaceutical company that I work with today. And it was having this jump over and the embedding it and using that opportunity to build my network within this sponsor organization. When I say sponsor, sponsor is the terminology used for a company who actually develops the drugs itself. So you would
Yeah.
have heard of like Pfizer, MSD, AstraZeneca, Johnson Johnson. They're sponsor companies. They develop the
Yes.
drugs.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
Yeah, building that network, improving myself, and building a reputation, so that within a year they poach me over, and then I continue working and having From there, it was as a CRA two, I was having open dialogues with my manager to say, I want to achieve this in this certain time. Not being cocky or entitled or anything like that, but stating this is my personal goal.
Yeah, perfect.
Um, which, in saying that, reminds me is what I said to my first manager as an in-house. I said, within a year, I want to be a CRA. What do I need to do? This is the goal I'm working towards. And
Yeah.
obviously, each time I've said it, they've said, hey, hold your horses. It can take time. But that's fine.
Yeah.
Even if it takes longer, that's okay. But this is a personal goal I'm setting for myself, a personal professional goal. I will work to these standards. But as a manager, obviously, I need your help into guiding me on providing me with, for example, a complex study or a high profile
Yeah.
study so that I can work on it and succeed. Um, and yeah, it's just those are the opportunities to take. So it's confidence, it's integrity, it's some luck. Of course, nothing's ever goes to plan. You need some luck happens in life, and at times it won't work.
Yeah.
Yeah, like my first application to be a senior, I was knocked back, but that's okay. You take the feedback on board, you go. Recently, I applied for a CRM job. I got knocked back. That's fine. I took that feedback on and I'm being proactive about it now. So next time around, I will actually have that experience and that know-how and the skills to be successful in that promotion.
Mm.
So yeah, I hope
No,
that
that's
answers some questions a bit all over the
yeah,
shop.
no. That was great. So, I mean, really good. Like that's there's a couple of things I want to sort of touch on here.
Mm,
Really great that you were able to have those conversations with your manager and sort of go, look, I don't care how long it sort of takes. I just want to have those clear, concise goals so I know what I'm working towards and have
yes.
sort of that checklist. That's a really big thing to do,
It's
and that's
ownership.
yeah, exactly. That's
Taking
great.
ownership of your development.
Yes, because you
That's
can't just rely on other people to do
no,
that for you. So it's
no.
great that you did that and took the initiative.
Yeah.
Now, another big thing that we talk about at Career Companion, which you've touched on a lot, is networking. So
Mm,
networking is huge. Now, and everyone does it differently. So I'd really love to know how you did it. So, for example, when I wanted to move up in a role when I worked in media, my sort of, I guess, how I networked is I went to the different departments, introduced myself that I wanted to get into, introduced myself and said, hey, do you have a spare half an hour at lunch? I'd love to pick your brain, when I was in the office.
yeah.
Or I was like, hey, we've both finished work at 5. There's a pub downstairs. Do you want to go have a chat? That's how I sort of networked. But how did you go about it? Because it sounds like you've built a very vast network and really capitalized on it. What sort of
Yeah.
like how did you do that networking?
To begin with, and to be straight honest, it's Friday afternoon drinks.
Yep.
Um, everyone's like, I think it's important to remember, like, everyone's human. Like,
Yes.
everyone likes to have a good time. Everyone likes to knock off. Obviously, it's a bit harder if you're dealing with executives and stuff like that. But in terms of your immediate surroundings and your interdepartmental, that's how I originally started it off, right? Is they invited me for it's taking that opportunity or saying to the people around me that I was sitting next to at the time is let's go grab a drink. Hey, what are you doing for lunch? Let's go grab lunch, kind of thing. It's just building a relationship with each other. Not only that, further on into my career, it's just even saying hello is
Yes.
super useful. It's even I might have an executive director that's come, and this actually last year, what happened was an executive director. We had a company meeting, all right, an APAC company regional meeting in Kuala Lumpur. So we had executive directors, head honchos coming from all over the world to this meeting. And I just took the opportunity to go up to him and just introduce myself. Hi, my name is so and so. I work, this is my position. It's so great to meet you. But then at the time, you don't necessarily need to, right? But I use this as an opportunity to broach a topic with him that I was interested in. And that I
Really?
said, has he ever thought about utilizing genetic technologies in pharmaceutical research? to cure certain diseases. Our company thought about doing this because it's something I would love to be a part of. And, this is my background and this is, where my childhood passion lies. And it's building, and he can then obviously put you in touch with people. And he did put me in touch with a few people. And it's that just having those conversations and taking that leap, just as a hello, even, it can go a long way.
I love that. So I love that you just seize the opportunity. But I think what you touched on there that we always seem to forget, and I think we're lucky in Australia that people are pretty open in the
Mm.
fact of just because you've got a high job title, there, people are people at the end of the day. Like,
Yes.
don't be scared to go up to someone who's more senior than you and introduce yourself and think, oh, I'm going to be wasting their time. They're not going to want to speak to me.
But, sure, they might meet and shake hands with 100 people a day. But at the same time as well, it doesn't hurt just to take that opportunity. And you don't have to have an underlying reason to go and talk to them. You could just go up and say hello and just say, oh, how are you finding it here? Like if they were to be in Australia, I'd be like, how do you find in Australia? How long are you here for? Just talking to them as a person, because I think having those real genuine conversations as well, it helps them remember you because as a person.
Yeah.
Not everything needs to be about business. Yes, it does help. You've got great ideas, take your shot, introduce them, have those dialogues, but also you don't need to have something business wise to discuss with a senior manager. You could just be a person and just introduce yourself so they can put a name to the face to the name. Yeah.
Amazing. That's some fantastic advice, and obviously it's worked really well for you. I guess my last question that I like to ask as well is for people looking to get into where you are right now, give them a bit of an insight. What do you love about your job and what you do now?
What I love about my job is that I feel as though I'm having a direct impact to patients' lives. Although I don't see patients, I don't directly interact with them. It's not that I did previously. But I was also obviously working with their genetic material, their specimens. But by the work that I'm doing and the relationships that I have with the site to provide the quality data that we provide, we're able to bring these medicines to patients that need us sooner or later. The company that I work for, MSD, we have a saying, patients come first. It's essentially our motto. And that's something that we try to remember on a daily basis, that the work we're doing is so that patients can get their drugs. We have to put patients first. All the politics goes out the window when you think about patient first.
Yeah.
Um, it's not an easy job. There's a lot of hard discussions and multitasking and juggling and tight deadlines with different vendors and stakeholders, etc. But um, knowing that you can directly affect people's lives, it's yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. It's been awesome listening to your career journey, where you got to, and I love some of the insights that you've given on, I guess, how to build your network and how that's really helped you progress in your career. Really appreciate it, and thank you again.
No problem. Thanks, Sam. Appreciate it, mate.